What's up, everybody? This is Carmine Davis here with Josh Stokes at the after show, the Carmine Davis Now After Show. Thank you so much again for sharing and co-hosting with me today. I
Problem.
appreciate you got through the hot topics. You did awesome, by the way. Like most people just be like, "Oh, I don't have an opinion." So I appreciate you for sharing your opinion and everything like that. But we talked briefly. This is something, I might be late to the party, but I talk a lot about and realizing for myself what the media has done to me, what I have done to people as a creative, the images and just even like when you talked about the diet, like it hit home to me because I'm like, I realize the things that I consume and how they make me feel, I don't always correlate the two.
Word.
And until I started realizing, like, what I'm putting in my body, despite people saying that it's fair, I picked it up from a store, right? Like, it's should be consumable, but not realizing that my diet and my health and all those things, it are everything. Like, going through that while also being media, I do pop music, I do the pop things and all those things, but I do it in a conscious manner. And as you're gearing up, you've been doing this for a long time as well and all that. Explain to me like your journey through what you've seen on the media, what the media has done for you and diet, like all those things. Like, did you have to go through that situation? Or did you always know that it was some bullshit when you were, you know,
Not at all, man. Like I believed everything that was on television. I thought everything that you read in the newspaper was true.
Mhm.
Um, everything that your parents told you about, don't do this or you go into hell and all this
Right,
type of stuff. All of that stuff, I believed it to be true. Even when it comes down to just the simple thing of like drinking whole milk and stuff like that, it does the body good. You're supposed to drink it. As you get older, you realize all the stuff that's in the milk. And as a traveling musician, we probably had some of the worst diets in the world. Going up and down the road, stopping at Wendy's, getting baconators and milkshakes and big fries and all that type of stuff, and falling right asleep on it. So like, I totally understood it. And I think for me, it took seeing some of my colleagues starting to have strokes and have seizures and get cancer to start being like, whoa, this is not a game. We're not going to be like 19, 20 out here forever. You start seeing all your friends that were once skinny, like start getting bellies. And it's just showing you life.
right.
You're not going to be the same way all the time. You're not going to have the same body frame at 32 as you did when you were 16. The nerve of you to even think that you would. So it's like we have
Even
to
that
be
thought
mindful.
process alone, like, realizing just that we're aging is a step in the right direction.
Exactly. And just being mindful of it and like not looking at it as a drag, but just looking at it as like, yo, just being aware and just being mindful of who you are. Because it's dope to grow.
Right,
Like that's another thing with media too. Like they have sold growing and aging as the ugliest thing ever.
right,
Nobody wants to get old. Nobody wants to have a wrinkle. Nobody wants to have a gray hair. Nobody wants to sag in any kind of way. But
right,
what do you think happen when you turn 45?
right,
Like,
and
like it needs to be marketed as, yo, you're alive and you're able to experience your 40s. But instead of that, it's like, ew, like you're 40. And I don't think that that's cool. Like I think that we could market and spin what 40 is, what 50 is,
right,
because
for real.
if you want to be real, that's when you start to see your real success start to show physically. Because
Yes,
in your 20s and 30s, you're putting in the work, so you're not looking up to see. Once you start to get to those 40s, you can kind of look up and be like, "Yo, look what I built, man! Like my family, my empire. Like, yo, look what I was able to build by
right,
putting in 20 years of just focusing." So it's like it's a privilege to be able to grow old. Thinking about being a black, especially black men, how
mhm,
we're get exterminated from 12 up.
right,
So it's like to be
mhm,
able to say, yo, I'm 36, I'm still alive. I never
mhm,
got jumped, I never
right,
got stabbed or shot. Like, yo, I'm really fortunate. And I just want to show that side of life more than just like the downtrodden, or like, yo, life is hard, or like the other day this happened. Like we have people for every story, but I think we get a lot of that story. And that's something that also puts us back in the box.
Yeah.
Like, okay, black men, what, you're poor, your mother's on drugs, your father left you, you got raised by your grandmother, or you got raised in the foster system. It's so easy to kind of like just put us in this box of like what our experiences were, that they'll never show a person like you or I who's
Yeah.
just like, yo, they just hella creative. They just like having fun, and
Yeah.
it's about
My mother supported me going in the room pretending I was Britney Spears, like, she let me just
that.
go in there and do those things, like, and that story to me, like, people just don't get that, like, the idea, like, how I feel free enough to be myself
Yeah,
already in a hardwired through everyone, like,
yeah,
everyone that I work with, everyone that I my friend circle, even that, like, I don't feel the same what is it? I don't feel the same sadness or the ability to not be able to, and I do contribute it to my mother not always getting me, like, I don't think my mom always asks me, like, "Where did you come from?" But I
right,
always tell her, like, "It's because you allowed me to be," like, she didn't always get me, all I had to do was just stop starting shit in the house, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
stop talking crazy, blah, 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 "I know you're drama, I know you're an artist, but I watch my fucking show, like, be quiet right you're gonna play your drums and you're gonna do all those things. Can you do before I get home? Like all those things.
Absolutely,
And yeah, and I didn't have, I mean, my father wasn't there, but I don't have the same traditional relationship with the father not being there. I didn't like my dad. So I
right.
didn't you know what I mean? Like it was a difference between and like, oh, I wish daddy was there. I didn't like how he treated my mother and I didn't like how he was who he was. So I didn't want him. I didn't look for him. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Totally.
and like in therapy, I've a lot this show is kind of built on me going to therapy. I go to 2 therapies a week, like and for years, it's always been my thing. Like I go and it's a luxury to be able to do that, and I'm blessed, but in that process, I consider this a therapy session
Word.
in itself. So 3 basically. So for me to the listeners, and I share my moments and dealing with the trauma that I experienced. And then another thing was daddy issues. And
Yeah,
so one thing I learned, I didn't think I had daddy issues for me personally because I'm not looking for men to feel something about my father. I don't miss him. I don't do anything like that. But then I learned even just me being in my relationships, I used to cut men out very quickly. I would date and then they would do something I didn't like, get the fuck out. Like, you know what I mean? Or I'm done with this
absolutely.
situation or blah blah blah. And then I realized that that is daddy issues. You don't know how to sit back and have a relationship and have work things out with people. And I've been engaged and all those things, but it was never enough for me because you were not perfect or you made me feel this way. You brought up some instilled some issues inside of me that I did not wasn't ready to work with on my own. You're supposed to fix this for me, not me having to fix this on my own. Like, so the reason I brought all this up is that you being a father and then you're a positive black man and we talked about it this full circle moment, right? Like
Yeah,
we talked about how you want to have a better relationship with your father so you understand how it's yin and yang, what's below, above. Like that
absolutely.
there's a connection that you're gonna have to be able to get to where you wanna be as a father and as a person or as a creator, all those things.
Yeah,
I'm going through that same thing, even though I don't look for him or anything like that, I ignore my father, I think I've seen messages on Facebook and I just never open them, but
word.
you being like a black father, how you and I want kids, like, this is the process, I'm in a relationship where I want kids, and how was that for you? For you? That's how it was for me. How was that process for you?
Um,
The relationship with your father and how it
yeah.
correlated to you
It,
being a better person, how did it show up for you?
so for me, it showed up in just being available.
Mhm.
Um, just being a father that wanted to be a good provider, that wanted to be a protector. Um, and those are a lot of the great characteristics that my father showed me. that really stood out. He was an amazing provider. He was an amazing, protector. I never felt afraid around my father, and he was also very, very, very intelligent. Um, but like also like trauma that you were saying, I felt like we were not his priority.
Right,
And with a lot of men, when it comes to building an empire, the family isn't the priority. It's about building the empire. And my father is a pastor, so that was important. And making sure that the church was being built and that everything was happening the way it was supposed to, that is what was important. Like I would make sure you had, egg and cheese or some chips, but as far as like really being there and being present, I can honestly say I don't recall a lot of those where it was like, Dad, can I talk to you about something? And we just like chill and just have those moments. It was like a lot of phone calls, meetings, having to go here, having to be here, so it was like the connection was from the work. And I think that that was something that also made me very work conscious and driven and focused.
mhm,
It was like, we here to do the work, availability, things of that nature, things that you would hear and things that you would just pick up subconsciously because this is what we do. This is what the tribe does. You know, we don't really acknowledge pain. We don't acknowledge loss. We just keep pushing,
mhm,
that type of stuff. So I took a lot of that onto my life, staying focused, wanting to make sure I build my thing. But then I had to also make sure that I was present with my children and
mhm,
that they were able to talk to me and that they knew that I got them and understood them. I never wanted to be like so caught up in my thing. Like, if anything, I wanted my children to be in my thing with me and we could like create something together. Like, let's create something. But I never wanted them to feel like they were, I guess, being left behind or like
right.
not really
Easy
thought
to,
of.
yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I think that's the issue with a lot of, Black people is I got that vibe too, but from my mother. My mom was a single Black mom. She started her home business, and I wasn't able to really sit down and express myself to my mom. I felt and didn't realize until even right now, you telling your story or even, and then even the therapy that I built, I always said out like my mom, it was almost like she was talking about somebody else all the time through maybe the pandemic is how me and my mom got close. Like we didn't have anything to do but talk on the phone and, blah
yeah,
blah blah. But for years, me and my mom did not click emotionally at all whatsoever. It was never a I don't remember having an emotional I could cry, my mom would hold me or anything like that. My mom would tell me to shut the fuck up, or get up or she would
yeah.
let me cry and then she would go on about herself or, blah 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 and I wasn't allowed to. My mom worked and what I remember was she worked all the time and it took me up until my own therapy to realize that and I was working too. That's what I only knew. I came to Georgia with nothing, and I came here and did worked my ass off 3 jobs sometimes 4, doing all this stuff and, putting my creative sometimes to the side so I can provide a life, and I realized that the job just never stops, you know what I mean? Like, if you wanna elevate and you wanna do more and you wanna get more of these material things or all these things, yeah, I mean, like, everything's more expensive, more work is being done, more people are calling for you to do more work, but it just never stops, but that emotional stuff that I felt, I needed to talk to somebody about it, and when I went to therapy and I realized, like, the reason why me and my mom didn't really get along emotionally is because we didn't even know each other.
Right.
And I had to start those conversations in the pandemic during, when we would just have nothing to do and I could talk to her. And, like, I felt like the first 2 times me and her talked and I was scared to have that emotional relationship with her because it was new. I was raised to kinda not have that. Even with my friends, like, there was not a they always said you're mysterious, there was a lack of intimacy. And when I started being creative, and I think the show process too, and the music and all that, for me being able to express myself and the fans and everybody listening and being like, "I relate to you," or "Although you make a lot of sense." So that was where I learned, like just like when I was a kid in my room, pretending, Michael Jackson, I'm Prince or Beyonce or
Right.
whatever in my room, and showing that, and then it coming out of my room and being in chorus and theater, I was Harold. Those were times but it didn't mean anything because my mom didn't affirm those things.
Exactly.
Work, 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 work. So when I started to realize and show her, that was something that we had to learn together. Like maybe my mom did not know that emotions matter. She
Right.
mattered. Mom, check in with me. Like, how are you feeling about this kind of thing? Like, mom, you should probably talk to somebody about it. And I think
Mhm.
until that, our conversations now we talk for 2, 3 hours on the phone, and I think we ended up learning so much more from each other and learning about her and her past and learn her knowing what's really going on with me. My mom had no idea probably. In her mind, I was probably like a 28, 30-year-old virgin or something like that. You know what I mean? I have no relationship. I've been engaged. I've been had in abusive cycles and all those things. So it was, I think she didn't know me. So me
Absolutely.
showing up to my mom and being vulnerable to her and showing that side to her, side to me, allowed her to do it for me and realize that there's so much that we have to learn from each other. And
Exactly.
as far as men and my relationship with my father or my fiance and all those things, it is a work in progress because I don't. That's a void or something to me that I don't have that work. Like, I don't know what it's like to go in the kitchen at 3 years old and tell my daddy I'm hurt. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm hurting and knowing what that feels like. I don't know what it's like to come and tell my mom, "Oh, mama, I got a boo-boo," and her be okay with it. So at, pushing 30 and all those things, like, you don't know how to tell your partner they hurt you. You just know how to go and work and then keep it to yourself and heal.
Deal
And
with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that that's incredible that, you know, your story and how you what did you go to therapy? Did you
Did during quarantine time, I definitely did some therapy sessions. Throughout that time, I was going through some issues of my own, where
Mhm.
it was just like it was a lot of issues all wrapped up in once, relationship issues, like me really missing my mother at the time, um, how the
Is your
relationship
mother
with
is your mother alive? Is she passing? Is she
no
just far low she's far?
2006.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
she
sorry.
had kidney failure, so she passed. And I just know that there was a lot of things that I never dealt with. Again, because of the way that I was raised, we never really dealt with what's the matter. We just like fake smiled until we weren't mad
You're a pretty
anymore.
cat too, right? You were a preacher's kid.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Like it was easy to kind of just put a mask on and nobody, I always say like I know I'm gonna be, well, I'm successful now, but if I ever were to like become famous or whatever, I'd already kind of halfway know how to deal with it
Right.
because of my
Upbringing. Mhm.
already lived in like my own little reality TV show where
Yeah.
people would me or people would say this or people would kind of just get off on talking about me and my family because that was their entertainment. So it
Right.
was like I kind of know how to deal with some of the bullshit. So it was like seeing that and seeing how those things moved, it was never appealing to me. And I never really wanted to be on top of the wall, like looking down at people. It made me really want to stay like connected to the people and not so much like I'm looking down at y'all, like what y'all need, what y'all want. Like
Mhm.
that never felt like a good position for me. And yeah, that's why I just kind of just stayed to myself and I never really wanted to connect to people because you never really knew what the reasons were. So I
What
would
they
just kind
wanted.
of like,
Mhm.
yeah, just have
They
my
wanna
one or two.
know you, or did they wanna know so they could go and tell, "This is what so and so son did."
Exactly. And he's
Mhm.
supposed to be the pastor son. Can you
Mhm.
believe
Yeah, yeah.
that? Like, for me, it was always the music. It was never like the religion. It was never none of that. It was like, yo, I get to play drums here.
Yeah,
Like,
did you play in church? I'm sure.
yeah, absolutely. Since 2 years old, you
Did you
know,
did you feel like you honed all your craft? Because I used to date he wasn't a preacher's kid, but he was grew up in church, and I did too. Like, it was I had a weird relationship with church. I hated going. I hated the people. Even at a young age, I didn't like the idea and the concept of the judging. I didn't
Oh,
understand it. Like, even when I was young, there was something in me that was just like, not fuck the church, but like you can't say that.
nah,
But like it was like the idea of the black church. It didn't feel like that
yeah,
to me, and it wasn't when I started to have my own relationship with God at a very young age, which is really, really weird. Like, I started having faith through music, but it was mostly secular music that I started having
yeah,
my faith in, and realizing like through like just with Mariah Carey, she had a lot of gospel songs and all those. That was my instilled faith in the Lord, and knowing that a lot of even queer artists or people who identified or celebrated the queer lifestyle, they had a relationship with the Lord, and they knew that in order to have a relationship with the Lord, you have to love everybody. And so when I went to church and I was hearing messages or getting vibes or something like that, seeing a lot of people hurt and damaged, and hearing about how they put on a facade at church, but they were this thing in reality, and they were pillars in the church. I did not like church as a body at 8 years old, 12
I
years
get
old.
it.
You know what
Yeah,
I'm so I immediately rejected it at a young age and found my own relationship with the Lord, which I think is why I'm able to be so faith-filled in my own. I built my own real faith-filled, like, I have real faith, and I tell my mom that, like, faith is a verb, you know what I mean? Like, it's
sure.
something that you have to kinda always do. My mom was sick, and I remember she was just so paranoid and downtrodden. I said, "Mom, you're making yourself worse. Like, do you
Right.
not believe like you always raised?" We were in church. I'm like, "Well, that's silly. You know, I mean, you have a son. I'm able to do things for you. If you just gotta speak your mouth, open your mouth and ask. I love you. I'll do
Mhm.
anything for you."
Yeah,
Are you?" And then she's like, "Money." I was like, "Well, money's your only problem. You got it. What's really going on?"
right.
And realizing that people were raised in the church and it was performative and
Totally.
yeah, and instead of having real faith that I gained through music, secular music, and then I went back to gospel. I know Kim Burrell and Mary
Yeah.
Mary, all those people very much.
Word
And
up.
I didn't have that kind of relationship in church. So I do know that what you're talking about that idea of I know how they do PKs, like, I mean, damn near paparazzi following you. If they see you out on a date or something like that, they wanna know who this is or who that is, and, he with the biggest hoe in church. But in
For
reality, you have been the biggest hoe in church. Like, so what? Like, these are still things that you're a child going through a teenage phase, you're hormonal, dealing with your own identity sexually, physically, spiritually, emotionally. You might not even believe the same thing that everybody else around you believe, but not having that room,
right.
understanding that everybody secretly was going through at the same time was is probably insane to you. And even me on the other end, like I'm Gigi's son, you know, I didn't and like you said, fame, like all that is easy to me because I know how to ignore people. Like I'm really good at ignoring criticism. I don't because you ain't no different than me, bitch. Like nothing about you is different. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you get done, sure, you about to sit back and talk about, this or that and the third. But when you get done,
Yeah.
like my mom always said, everybody's got to worry about their own eventually. And those were the
Uh-huh.
things that were instilled in me and outside the church. And I'm glad I didn't have that big of a church, like, when I was growing up, like, a relationship with the church because all my friends did, and they were afraid to come out, they're afraid to share their platforms and all that because
Yeah.
they're the church
It's
at
true.
30, 40, 50 years old,
Yeah.
what they think about them, and so I
No.
applaud you from breaking away from that as well.
Very much. I really say like I lost my mind. Like I really had to go what they would say crazy for a minute because you get stuck in that moment of all right, well, what are they gonna say? What are
Mhm.
they oh man, they about to start calling me crazy. They're gonna think I'm getting high or just whatever the thing is. And that judgment can be severe
Yeah.
to the average person. So I'm like, yo, what am I? Am I just some average person that's going to let people's opinions stop me? Or am I going to really live my life as best as I can and really go out here and say, forget you? So I
Right.
had to do that. I really did because, man, people are going to say
They're
whatever they
gonna
want to
talk.
say. But
Oh, they're
yeah,
gonna talk
for
all day
real.
long. If it's not about you, that's something I learned. People gonna talk. My ex, he was in the church too, and we both sing and all that, and he was raised in ministry and all those things. But he said one thing about them, they gonna talk anyway. They got a mouth, and they got 2 ears, but they gonna talk twice as fast as they
They
listen, and
live for it.
they gonna talk.
Them after church dinners, nigga.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot. You know,
I
"Oh, well, bitch, they can't even eat, their food is cold." Like, "Oh, well, you know, I done
see,
heard about blah, blah, blah. Oh, yep, oh, cha, 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 cha." And then it's when you turn it around, my mom always said that. She said, "Well, when you're gossiping with people," she said, "You know, I understand gossiping is important." She said, "Well, you know, how many people are willing to sit back and be like, yeah, I got my ass beat last night by Henry,' you know, like, and and then watch the whole conversation stops. Nobody wants to gossip about themselves.
it's
They're talking
dope
about
shit.
themselves."
You just hit a nail on the head for me, man, because I've been thinking about those type of people, right?
Mhm.
And really is a form of self-hatred,
Yeah,
you know, because they are so trying to show you how miserable or ugly or unhappy that they aren't. They want to throw all the dirt on you. And another thing about Carman, and another thing, and another thing. Let me tell you about this. And it's
mhm,
just like so that you won't point out how ugly I am and how wrong I am, or like how fucked up my life is, you
right,
know?
right,
And like that mean girl attitude
right.
to me, that like, mean for trying to act nice or like texting the
God bless.
whole I got
Mhm,
everybody on the group text, but they smile. That to me is a huge form of self-hatred
right,
because that's so old. And when you look back at all those women who were girls that were doing that, they hated themselves. They thought they were ugly. That they thought that something was wrong with them. But to everybody else, they were cute. They were fly.
right,
They were the cutest. But they hated themselves, and that's how they showed it.
right.
And the
Somebody
ugliness.
said something to them and made them feel ugly, and so they wanna pass it along, and not just the women in the church. I've heard a lot of mostly men in the church, like, it was a lot of self-hate, even being queer in church. I
Hell yeah.
experienced a lot of sexual, and you know what's so crazy is I didn't know, I would have the opposite happen. Nobody ever tried to make me feel bad for being gay, like, "Gay ass boy." They almost still to this day, I don't know if this was something like generationally or anything like that, but they used to come up to me and try to express that to me, or even be sexually vulgar. This might be going someplace else, but like I've noticed that in church, a lot of times they would like want to touch me or be with me or all these things like that and express that to me in a sense of, and that's what another, I'm like, get the fuck away from me. Like,
Yeah,
I might
it's-
be,
that's
I'm young.
communication.
Yes, and it's always like they wanna talk about these things outside, but they're suffering with that stuff on the inside, and that's something I always knew at a young age, that these boys are trying to hunch me, but I'm not a sexual person, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still a kid because I was able to be a kid because 'cause I'm able to express myself. There was nothing, I didn't think sexually or anything like that. It took me till I was grown to I was 21 when I lost my virginity, and,
Right.
like, yeah, so to me, like, my mom allowed me to be a kid. My mom always, like, we weren't allowed to talk emotionally. I couldn't come up to her and be like, we probably had one real quick conversation and all those things about sex and all that, but we never talked about it until this day. And I think, but what my mom did was protect it and allowed me to do whatever the hell I was gonna do. And I always thank her for that because I know a lot of parents beat the shit out of their kids or told them, "You get the boy toy, you do this, no, boys don't wear that," and yada yada yada. And it helped me creatively. I'm releasing, like, I released my remix EP and all that. And I wanted to stay because I at first house music was what made me like who I am. But so I
Right.
wanted to kinda do funk, live, like, show range and all that musically. But then this one around with I Know What Boys Like, it was important to me because it was my middle finger to my childhood and my upbringing and the Black queer idea of me not sitting here licking whipped cream off my face and honey on my face. Like, it wasn't, I'm not like that, but, like, it was the idea, my artistry was like, "Fuck you, this is me being Black, gay, and in this space, being of sexual, not dodging the gay glance or the straight glance, singing this song that is I know a boy's like, and all these things that is true, that and making a remix EP that's dedicated to the queer community and all those moments of us being out at night and being confident about it and having
Absolutely.
a pop glassy song with it and associating. I was thank the Lord Christopher Butler allowed me to re-record it, but I wanted to do it in a way that was almost like purposely pushing that idea of what people would tell you is not what you're supposed to be in
Exactly.
that field. Yeah, and so, like, I'm like, "Okay, well," like, even the cherries in the back of the background of my thing, I'm like, "I'm popping that cherry."
Word
Artistic,
up.
I want this is what's gonna push me and have open the eyes, seeing someone my skin complexion, my size,
Absolutely.
my my all these things, doing these things, singing this song, and it
Yep.
will free some people, and it's gonna keep them bitches talking, but this time, you got to talk. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
do it
Totally.
because it's
Because
out
just you existing
right.
is such a revolutionary move.
Right, and I did
Uh,
not know that. You know what I
Yo,
mean?
me either. You
Yeah,
know, it took a few people telling me how locally how
yeah,
I've impacted them. You
right,
know, we can look over like what we're doing for somebody in our town because we so desperately just want to be like, yo, somebody from California hit me and tell me I'm awesome, fly me
right.
out.
Yeah,
That somebody is like, yo, you are fucking dope. We don't
right,
even hear that.
right.
You
Because 'cause
know,
we're worried about Linda who sits on the board with
exactly.
my mama, who thinks that we got the demons inside of us, you know?
Like, yo, I just reject all of those small ways of thinking. And if you're a small thinking person, to be honest, you just can't be around me. Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna allow you to be because it's like it's just a certain kind of thinking that I have to be around even in order to exist.
This
Because I
feel inside of you.
yes,
You are a big thinker, and even
totally,
me, I am a big thinker, but I want people I think about all the people who I admired, right? One thing that they all had in common as me as an artist, Britney, Madonna, Prince,
yeah,
Luther, all those people had people talking about them, had people always talking about everything that they were doing, and I realized that that's a part of my art. And because people talked about them, they talked about Prince and how he's queer and all those things, I was able to come out and be myself and be like, bam, I'm here, but I still play. I'm a singer, all these things. Listen, let's talk about my talent. And because of that, I'm here. So, okay, well then shit, bring it on. You know what I mean? Like we have to keep people talking.
we
That's
do.
important to have people talk because shit, they're gonna talk anyway. If it's not gonna
True,
be about me, they're gonna talk about you. And if they're not gonna talk about you, they're gonna talk about the other the boy singing in the choir or the other boy that's playing the drums. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna talk.
it's
No,
true.
focus on me. You know what I mean? Like I said, no, no, focus on
Yeah,
me because I have something to say, and I'm also intelligent. If you sit back and you watch this song, you fuck around and click on the video, we're saving lives. All these
yeah,
things. I'm having
true.
conversations about things that are important because you need to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, sure, he's all talking about gun reform, and I want those debates, those kitchen debates. Like, I'm open to that. Talk to them about, why we can't shoot up queer spaces or why, because next minute they're shooting up churches. You know what I mean? Like, and it's important to sit back and I had to learn to not shy away from that, and it took me a long time to get there for sure, but until I realized no matter what I did, even if I walked into the room, people were just talking, and it
Yeah,
wasn't always bad. I don't remember maybe my mentality. I don't listen to the negative. I remember the positive people who, like, "You saved my life," or "I'm proud of you," or "I'm thankful that you exist because I can" like, "You gave me so much confidence," or "You make me
totally
feel like, you always make me feel so good," and yada, yada, and
true.
I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna ride that way."
Because we're doing the same thing that all the so-called big stars are doing. We're just putting in the actual work. We're
Right.
not back like corporations. So we're actually putting in our own resources and time and money, which makes the outcome even greater. You know
Right.
what I mean? And that's how I choose to look at the coin as opposed to, oh man, I'm not doing it yet. But as soon as this, it's gonna be on.
'Cause
I'm
the money
doing it right
is rolling
now.
in. Right,
Yeah,
and we probably make more than people who are in these bigger positions because
totally.
they didn't get paid to be there, they just are
That-
and then so when I create with a brand, right, I get the choice to I want the same amount, even being a Black creative, they will try to lowball me, and I'm like, "Okay, I will talk to somebody and inbox that
that-
person who's working with that brand," just letting everybody know, I will. I'm having a conversation with the white girl I found, and they love me, and I'm gonna ask her, "How much did you get paid for this campaign?" "Oh, well, I got this." So when I'm talking to this person, "So and so got this, I want this." And then, okay, I'm getting paid the most, and then I'm working with brands who understand that this is the motive. This is it. What you see is what you get. What
Yep.
I'm talking about is real to me. Get on
Yep.
board. You're not gonna take money from me or tell me that muzzle me, any brand, any partnership that I work with, any collaborator or anything like that. this is a pro gay, pro queer, pro black, like, we're going and we're going ham, we're going to the top, and if you with it, you with it. If you got some money to spend, give it to me. If you don't, then just
Beat
go.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's all it is at this point. It's like either we talking real business or we're not talking at all. Like
right.
I don't want to hear like, "Hey man, if you give me $80, then I can do this, and then I can." I'm not with the scams. I'm not with the games. Like it has to be something that we're both benefiting from, or it's just not happening. Like I know my worth. I know what I bring to the table, and if you can't see it, then you can talk to the next person. But it's not me.
Like, I don't have don't care about them likes, but in the process, I have been. And I noticed that was weird too. And another thing that I thought about too is like, why do I get so many views, but not so many likes? But then I realized, oh, what you're doing is you're talking about shit that's kind of controversial, and like people probably don't want to know that they. But like in that process, it brought money. It's bringing conversation, and I didn't realize that one. I don't want to ruin what is true because it's real to me. So money cannot be I can't be bought. You know what I'm saying? But I can be collaborated with. You know what I mean? Like, and
Absolutely.
I feel like us being in that position of where quote unquote the idea of indie, I think free. You know what I mean? Like freedom, like because I know a lot of people who are major and they're not making the money that I'm making.
Oh, and that's what I was gonna say about you too when you were talking about like your mother and everything letting you sing, like, and just how you choose to live your life. You choose to be a free person. It's not like, oh, yo, you trying to be white or you trying to be. It's like, yo, I'm just trying to be me and trying to live life as a free as person as I can. And because we've never seen that, we don't know what that looks like. So it's strange to other people. It's like, yo, why do you say that? Why do you think that way? Why do you dress that way? Or why do you talk that way? It's because, yo, I don't want to remain in the box that we've been in for the last 500 years. So, of course, I'm going to look strange to you when you've only heard you can do like five things, when your mother can only do three things. Of course, you're going to say me saying, like, yo, I can do anything. I can change this world. It's going to sound like blasphemy because it's like, boy, what you talking about? You can't do that. Don't you know you limited to do this, you limited to do this, you can't do that, you don't belong here. We've been told forever like what you can't do. So to be like, nah, fuck those rules, we can do whatever. It sounds scary to a lot of people, especially our elders, because they have been beaten into submission like for so long. You come in like brash and boisterous, like watch this. They'd be like, well, you're gonna wind up dead. You can't go out here and say you're gonna be doing this and doing that. And then that's the first thing they put on you is the fear.
You're right. And I don't think that. Like you're just doing it. But I appreciate what they said. We have a minute left, so I'm gonna officially wrap it. But I really do appreciate you
I appreciate
sharing. Yeah, no, this is awesome, and this is. I'm so glad I chose. Like I have to be with people